Hey, ladies, welcome back to the Purity is Precious podcast. Today, I have an amazing guest that's going to be joining me by the name of Nneka. Nneka is an amazing woman. She is a transformation coach, and she is going to be talking with us on the topic of feeling unmuzzled. So, have you ever had a moment in your life where you literally felt like everything that you said was the wrong thing, or anything that you done was taken out of context? And you felt like your voice was being muzzled? Well, today we're going to actually discuss that topic today. We're going to talk about valuing your voice and becoming unmuzzled and the steps that you need to take in order to be able to do that. Just wait with me and I'll bring Nneka back on. Hey, ladies, as promised, I have Nneka back with me. I am so excited about all the information that she's going to pour into us about how we can unmuzzle our voice and get confident in the things that we say and how we feel. Nneka, it's a pleasure to have you. Go ahead and introduce yourself for us.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. My name is Nneka Tene, and I'm the creator of Reshape the Soul, which is a mindset transformation coaching platform. But a little bit about me: I grew up in Oakland, California, until I was about age 13, and that's where a lot of the personality attributes tend to get shaped between those years. And so I did have some issues with trauma as a child, and because of that, I kind of shrank inside of myself, and I wasn't really confident. And not to say that I'm at a 100 today. I think it's always an ongoing process, but certainly at that young age, it settled some things in me that needed to be dealt with as I became an adult. So I'm very happy to be here, very happy to share, what things that I did that helped me to be more confident, to start to use my voice more. Just very happy to be here. Thank you.
That's so good. Thank you so much for that. So, Nneka, I know that as you stated, our childhood and our upbringing pretty much shapes our views about ourselves, shapes how we feel, the way that we think other people may feel about us, which is all internal things that we battle with day in and day out. And so I want you to talk a little bit about an experience that you had where you noticed that your voice was starting to lose its authority, where you started to muzzle it because you was afraid of the type of outcome or, the type of consequences that would come after something you may have said or something you tried to defend or protect.
Sure. I think for a lot of women, when you start to realize that it may hit you later where you realize I've been muzzling myself this whole time. And it dawned on me, I thought about a story, something that happened to me when I was a child. I remember being in like the second or third grade at Martin Luther King Elementary in Oakland, California. And that was like a family day. They had a family day. And this is when, the parents could come. It was like a little carnival. They had, snow cones and what have you. And so I was a, small child, short, skinny, kid. And so I was kind of easy to step over and not be noticed. And so when was, I went up to the snow cone line to get my snow cone. My mother was like, okay, you got to get it yourself. She handed me the money and she went and got in the car. So I'm standing there with my money trying to, can I have a snow cone? Can I have, mind you, all the kids are pushing me out of the way. And money is literally passing over the top of my head, and snow cones are passing back the other way. And I'm just standing there and staring. And finally my mom said, let's go. And I didn't realize at that moment, obviously, as a 7 or 8 year old, that I had not stood up for myself. I didn't realize it until much later in life, when I started to feel like I could be in a room and then back out of the room and nobody would know that I was missing.
Wow.
That's when it really impacted me. And I remember having that conversation with a couple of friends of mine, and they were just as appalled. And I thought everybody felt like that. That was the scary thing. I thought everybody felt like that. I thought it was normal to just feel like, oh, I'm an option. And so that's how I treated my voice. That's how I treated responding to things that were a discomfort to me. I just shrank. I just stayed silent. And that's, it started when I was young, but I didn't really fully grasp it until I was older, till I was much older.
Wow.
Mhm.
That's such an inspiring story because I think that that moment was pretty much what programmed you and how you would enter into certain rooms and things of that nature. And so as you were talking, like I do remember moments even within myself where I would shrink and just step back and kind of like be very quiet and just observe the room. I'm probably like an observer by nature though. I like to try to fill in
Right.
spaces when I
Yeah.
come into a certain space because it's me just, I guess I can be considered very sensitive to my spirit to an extent. And so when I come into certain atmospheres or whatnot, I'm really trying to gauge the momentum, the type of atmosphere that I'm in, simply because it helps me to know, how do I need to conduct or carry myself. And I think that me also being someone that always had to muzzle my voice as well, that has caused me to be a person where I'm always looking to see, okay, how is people responding to this person over here? How is people responding to that person?
Right.
And you can tell people who are confident in their own skin, who are
Mhm.
very boisterous and things of that nature or whatnot. And you kind of gauge from afar on how is people being receptive to them. And
Mhm.
so I remember, I believe with mine, if I go back to my childhood, as you was talking, one of the ideas, one of the memories that came back to me was when I was young as well. And I had a problem, whereas if I was trying to explain myself about something, I would get loud. And so every
Mhm.
time when I would get loud, they would think, my mom would think, and my brothers would think, oh, you lying. You're lying. I'm like, I'm
Mhm.
not lying. Why would I be
Mhm.
lying? Like I would just get
Yeah.
worse and worse simply because I would be like, I'm getting loud because I'm telling you the truth and you're not believing it. And so
Right.
it made me feel even more like, more invisible, like what you
Yes.
referenced to. I felt more so invisible, or I felt as though my voice didn't have any kind of weight to it, any kind of authority. And so
Mhm.
because that was something that I had struggled with, I just made up in my mindset that I won't, speak up anymore, or I'll just let whatever it be. And I remember saying that to my mom after, them accusing me of something that I did not do, and I'm getting loud about it again. They saying, you getting loud. Every time you get loud, you lying about something, right?
Mhm.
I remember
Mhm.
saying to them, I was like, okay, from this moment forward, I won't defend myself. Whatever you say I did, yes, I did it. And so, and when I made that statement, I think that resonated even with my mom.
Wow.
And she
Yeah.
was like, no, you're not going to be like that. You're not going to take responsibility for something that you did not do, because as an adult and me being a kid, she knew the repercussions of that mindset,
Right.
how weighty that could be down the line or whatnot. And for me, I was just tired of trying to defend myself and tired of trying to be heard. Whereas I was always being made out to be a liar or lying. And that wasn't necessarily the case. The thing was that they didn't understand my personality because I was young and it was still maturing and it
Right.
was still
Yeah.
unraveling. And so it was definitely a growth spurt in that, with me learning how to communicate where they understand where I'm coming from regardless of my tone.
Yeah.
And I had to learn how to check my tone. But can you talk in regards to that a little bit as well? Can you relate to something in regards to like the tone of the voice, or the
Oh
gesture of
yeah.
the body that actually causes people to be more so distant, or be like, yeah, she always up to something, or she needs to just be quiet and sit down somewhere?
Well, I can relate to that on two levels. One is when I feel more confident about something, you will hear a change in the tone of voice. It will get louder, right? If I don't feel as confident about something, then if I say it at all, then it might sound weak. It might sound, it might be a little more passive. You can hear that passiveness in the tone of voice. And so I also experienced that as a child, being told that I was lying when I was telling the truth. And I don't think as parents, we sometimes we really got to be, well, not sometimes, we really need to be careful about what we say to our children, but really not accusing a child of lying before really getting all of the information, getting all the information. Because again, I was told the same thing. And so what that made me feel like was, right, you don't believe me. What does that say to a child? This is not a safe space. And so then you start to internalize that. And then everything that you're always, now you're making, you're jumping through hoops to try to be heard. Now you're getting louder so you can try to be heard. Or now you're being a little more passive and a little more docile. So this time, now can I be heard this way? It's just you're making all of these changes to your personality and to your authentic voice until you do that for what, 10, 20 years. And now you got to find your voice again. You don't even know where it is. You've
Exactly.
lost it because you've done so much acrobatics to try to please other people, and then just to make them feel comfortable with who you are. And I think that that's how we are silenced, not just, you know, trauma aside, that's just how we tend to be silenced as women. And that's how we're groomed, growing up. And so now when we come to adulthood, we have to rediscover our voices and rediscover who we are and rediscover that authenticity in our voice because it's been beaten down for so long, you know. Certainly when you say, like, when you walk into the room and you're an observer and you're gauging and all of that, part of that, I can relate to that definitely. And I'll say for me, part of it was, yes, that's probably my natural tendency. But is it really? Like, was it always my natural tendency to gauge how others are reacting to others? What I'm really probably doing is protecting myself. I'm watching how you interact with that person. I'm watching how you interact with that person because now I'm going to adjust my level of engagement to you because I want to be protected. I want to be accepted. I want to be, you understand what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
that whole people pleasing, and that's what silencing your voice is. It's really a symptom of people pleasing,
Hmm.
which is a symptom of fear of loss. And so you're really fearing that you're going to lose a relationship. You're going to lose some kind of, clout or validity or something you fear you're going to lose. And so that's when you start to, make those adjustments to yourself rather than showing up as really who you are and then you know in a cordial kind of way so that people can start to adapt to you. This is a dance, it should be a dance, not an aggressive behavior. So I can definitely agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah, I hear you saying that we shouldn't take a back seat based upon who
Right.
we authentically are. And I
Yeah.
totally agree with that. One of the things that I noticed too, though, because this is what I kept hearing as you were talking. Um, I kept hearing that even though we may muzzle our voices is not just muzzled based upon the things that we say. It's muzzled based upon how we present ourselves. So like we
Mhm.
looking at someone as we talked about, how we observe the room, but we observe the room and we're looking at someone who has this big time personality. We're
Yep.
looking at how this person is dressed, how this
Yes.
person hair is done. We're looking
Right.
at the shoes, everything, because when you look at the ambience of a woman, everything about her, how she dressed, how her hair is, it seems to make up that woman's. And you can tell based upon how she's dressed, her type of personality. So we can look at
Yep.
somebody and say, that wears a lot of black, oh, he's very gothic or she's very gothic. You look
Right.
at them, so they must be obsessed with death or obsessed with with the afterlife or whatnot, because
Hmm.
people like that tends to be more so into those things. And then if you see a woman that's just very well pulled together, we look at her and she's dressed impeccable, very tasteful, modest. That's a classy woman. And so
Hmm.
she carries herself as such. And so all of that plays a part in our voice. That's our voice that speaks without us necessarily saying words. And
Absolutely.
I think that you can tell based upon people voices, based upon a lot of things that they choose to wear and how they present or dress themselves, because if you pay
That is
attention
so true.
when you see certain people that does not groom themselves properly, and what I mean by that is because I was that person when I was in high school. Let's say, for example, I would not dress myself up for school. It was just some jeans, and I always wore like this white button up, not button up. It was like a white sweater or whatever
Okay.
that was like a zip up similar to this or whatever. But
Mhm.
I would have on a decent shirt underneath it, but I always covered up my decent shirt or my cute shirt with this same white zip up sweater every single day at school with jeans. It was because my self esteem was shot. It was because I was
Right.
never considered to be the pretty girl. It was because I was always told that I was ugly. And it was always because I kept having my voice muzzled in regards to how I saw myself and how I viewed myself. So that was how I dressed myself. I did not dress myself in the way where like how some of the other girls that were dressing themselves that was more flashy with the heels and the whole nine and stuff
Mhm,
like that,
mhm,
simply
mhm.
because my voice had been muzzled based upon how I saw myself. My
Yes.
voice had been muzzled based upon me always being told that I say things out of context or in the wrong way. And then my voice had been muzzled based upon me not knowing exactly where I fit in the room.
Yeah.
And so because of that, that was one of the, the things that I had to constantly push past or whatnot so that I can get to
Mhm.
a place where I become comfortable. And so that's one of the things that I did not want us to neglect. Because as you was talking, you made such a wonderful point that it reminded me that it gave me at least a revelation. I ain't gonna say it reminded me, but I get like
Mhm.
revelations as we talk and as I hear other people.
Absolutely, yeah.
But it made me think about, you can tell when a person has muzzled themselves or muzzled their voice, even just by how they dress and how they appear before other people. And
Yeah.
so we talk about not taking back seats and being more comfortable with ourselves because that is important. Even now, for me personally, I have started to make a decision that I don't surround myself with anyone that's not comfortable with me. Because then here I
Mhm.
am worrying about, am I being judged or critiqued?
Right, you have enough of your own. You don't need any extra from anybody else. So, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I'm here I am. I'm 34. I'll be 34 years old this year. And I'm just now coming to that space. I'm
Mhm.
just now coming to a place where I'm not going to make myself force or to fit in into
Right.
a circle of people that has shown over the years that they're not comfortable with what I may say. They're not comfortable with how free I am because I can be very like a very free type of person or
Mhm.
whatnot in regards to like, just wanted to have a good time. And they may be like, I don't want to say overly religious, but very overly religious. And they have like this
Yeah.
whole image that they need to uphold.
Right, right.
So what it is that I've
That's
learned.
a whole other conversation. Ooh, yeah.
Exactly. So for me, I've just come to a place this year where I'm not coming into any rooms or environments that are not welcoming to me. And I
Mhm.
know that we may have been cool or friends or whatever, but at the same time, if you gotta hide the fact that you might be kicking it with me, that's an
Right. Yeah. And
that's
and just to go back to what you were saying with regards to how you dressed during high school because of your self-esteem and how you felt like you were muted then because you wanted to kind of hide. I kind of had the same origin, different result. I dressed up. I wore heels. I wore this. I wore that because I thought I had been called a pretty girl. So I thought that was all I had to offer.
oh,
So if my voice was to be heard, it was because of my face. Now
wow.
I'm getting old. I could say I'm 49 and my face ain't what it used to be. But the point is like beauty fades and all of that. Yes. But the point is what we put our stake in, like the fact that our esteem can be whittled down to what we wear and how we look and that kind of thing and how it impacts the girls who are called ugly and it impacts the girls who are called pretty. And either way, neither of them are showing up with
Authentic.
what's inside.
Hmm.
It's diminished because of what you look like, and I just think I just wanted to, you know, let come, kind of come in on that point that it's on both sides. Like we are addressing such an important topic today because both sides of the coin still have this struggle.
And that is
So
so interesting. I wouldn't have never had really known that because, from someone who was never considered to be pretty, we're looking at them like that. They got it all made,
mhm,
and they rock the confidence and everything like that or whatnot. But it's so interesting how if we don't take control over our thoughts, how they can talk
right,
us out of situations, how our
right,
thoughts could talk us into certain passive aggressive thoughts that's not even relevant to where we are in the current moment. And
hmm,
it constantly dwindles at us, which causes us to shrink, which causes us to not want to say anything, which causes us want to just become completely invisible because we think that we're not necessarily seen. We think that people only want to be around us for certain things or whatever,
exactly,
and that
right,
causes us to be like, okay, are you really here for me or is you really here for what I can do for you? And
right.
so I think that that's very important that you brought it up in regards to how girls that are very pretty still feel the same way as a girl that's not very pretty. And
Mhm.
so I thought that that was an interesting contrast for sure.
Yeah. And really, it's relative. It's someone's opinion, right? We don't have anything to do with how we come out of the womb looking, honestly, right?
True.
Like people be like, oh, you're so pretty. Thank you. But really, give it up to God. I had nothing to do with what I look like. And
Hmm.
so the fact that something we have nothing to do with can be tagged on to us as something that's a part of our value and our worth. And then ultimately, how we feel about ourselves is how we, out of the abundance of heart, our hearts that our mouth speaks these things or they don't speak, right? We are either vocal in a way that's not benefiting to us, or we're not vocal and that's not benefiting us. So like you said, in order to be heard you had to get loud. Well, someone who feels like I just won't be heard or my opinion doesn't matter, they just won't talk,
Hmm.
they won't let it come out. And so either way it's doing damage, it's just doing damage on both sides. So I appreciate that story that you shared because yeah, it's not something that, is automatic just because someone sees a physical attribute in someone.
Hmm.
They could be wearing a mask.
True. Very much so true.
Yeah.
And I want to touch on the part that you said is doing damage on both ends.
Mhm.
Because as someone that struggles with their voice and that always feels like they are left to fend for themselves, that's what it really feels like you're left to fend for yourself
Yeah.
or you're constantly being misunderstood.
Mhm.
How could that, it translates into a place also of being afraid of confrontation, and that's where I was in my own personal life, right? So I said I wasn't afraid of confrontation, but I was afraid of confrontation. And the
Mhm.
reason why I was afraid of confrontation wasn't because I didn't think I would be able to defend myself if an altercation came. It was not being able to really tame or to calm myself down because I would easily go from 0 to 100.
Mhm.
And so, when someone always feels like they've been muzzled and they're never able to express, they're going to fight for their life if push comes to shove. And so I want us to touch in regards to that, like that fear of confrontation. What does that stems from exactly what emotions? Is that like the emotions of feeling abandoned? Is that the emotions of, constantly being rejected? What do you think those emotions that, fuel that part?
Yeah, I definitely think it's rejection and betrayal. Just those, and the feelings of disappointment that come from betrayal, the feelings of anger that you might not feel like you have the right to express. Remember, because you're shutting down your voice. And so any kind of anger that you just kind of keep pressing down and pressing down, pressing down, it doesn't dissipate. It just keeps getting compressed like a trash compactor, right? Eventually, you can compact so much trash, right? But it still needs to be empty. It still needs somebody got to take the trash out.
It's going to
So
be a ticking time
that's
bomb.
it's a ticking time bomb. And then you end up reacting in a way that's inconsistent with the conflict that you're currently in.
Mhm.
And it could be a conversation that you just need to have, but you bring in all of this from back here that you never said or dealt with because now I can't take no more. And boom, the bomb is exploding. So I definitely feel like there are some emotions, particularly anger, which is probably a result of being hurt in some way that you didn't express that was painful to you, either to the person that offended you or to a counselor or some way to get that out and process it so that you can return to a healthy emotional, place. But it's that anger, that hurt, that disappointment just being smashed down, smashed down, smashed down, not addressed, not talked about, not, confronted, that builds up over time. And then you get this big bombshell of an reaction to something that had nothing to do with when so and so ate your brand new bag of chips without asking. And
Mm.
then it just kind of you know what I'm saying? Like long history of things,
Right.
that just kind of comes to this head.
Right. And I can definitely relate to that because like how you were saying, you keep compressing it and you keep compressing it and you move forward as if all is well when that's the furthest thing from the truth. And
Mm,
it sabotages relationships. It
it
definitely
does.
sabotages relationships when we don't allow ourselves to state and to speak our truth, regardless if a confrontation will come afterwards. And I think even in with me even saying regardless if a confrontation even comes afterwards, that's a mental program. Why
Yeah.
do we have to think that it's going to be confrontational? Why do we automatically assume that the person on the other end is going to take what we said out of context or the wrong way? But that's mainly because of what our childhood upbringing consisted of. Was your voice valued by your parents, or
Mhm,
was your voice valued by your siblings, or by
mhm.
your teachers or whatnot? But it reminded me so much of my very close friendship. I have a best friend, and actually we both are named Precious biologically, which is
Oh,
interesting. And every time when I talk about her, or if I say anything on like social media, anything like that, especially when it's like her birthday, you give out little birthday shout outs,
right.
say we have 10 years minus one of friendship.
No.
And
Yes.
so I would crack this. It's funny because it was a situation where now me and Precious is night and day. She's more so easygoing, laid back, forgiving, could brush stuff off very quickly. Whereas for me, I was more so of the person that will hold on to grudges or be
Mhm,
angry and things of that nature, but I was a suppressor. She knew how to surrender and release it and forgive. I suppressed and held on. And
mhm,
so we had an incident where one day I never expressed certain things that had bothered me, and I blew up, right? And so that caused our relationship to have a division in it for a whole year. And even to her credit, she did reach out and was trying to, resolve and make it, well, but it was on my end because I had to
mhm,
grow up and mature on my end because it was really my fault that this blow up had occurred. Because when the blow up occurred, she did say, "Why are you just now saying this?" Because these were conversations that
right.
I never had in the past, or that had, when it had occurred or things like that. And she really is a sweet girl. Like, she didn't know that these things had hurted me. So I robbed her of those opportunities and of those experiences to know that even though I come off hard and strong, I'm still delicate as well.
Yeah.
And so when you don't allow for people to hear your voice and identify with the delicacies in your voice and in your being, and know that you are definitely fragile. You are definitely not the thorns on a rose, but you are
Right.
indeed the rose itself.
Right.
I think that that allows for, people to go on a journey with you to actually know that your voice is something that is worth hearing and definitely worth protecting as well. And
Yes.
so that brings me to the point of, wanting to talk in regards to like some steps that we can actually take in regards to making sure that we don't self sabotage relationships or self sabotage opportunities or jobs because we don't necessarily execute our voice when necessary.
Yeah, well, one of the things that you mentioned about when she kept reaching out brought up, instantly for me, the first part is asking questions, right? Because when you start to realize that, like I was mentioning before, my voice, the silencing of my voice happened when I was a child due to a traumatic event. It didn't manifest to me where I noticed it until I was much older. And I realized that I had always felt like I could be someone that could back out of the room. And I would wonder if I passed away, how many people are going to come to my funeral, just all kinds of things, right? And so I didn't really notice until later, but I started to ask some questions. So that would be the first place to start. What about this relationship makes you feel, or what about your speaking up makes you feel like you're going to lose it? So let me just back up. For example, because your friend Precious was reaching out to you, and you were deciding that you didn't want to deal with it at that moment, you still were losing, right?
Yes.
So the fear of confronting, the fear of loss, right, from the action of confronting is still manifesting itself when you don't confront. So, what are the things that make you feel like you cannot speak up? That's the first thing, is asking questions. Where is it that I feel like I can't speak up and why? What do I fear losing if I start to speak up?
That's
And then it becomes so there's a gamut of questions. What do I fear losing? Why do I feel like I'm going to lose that? Who are the people that make me feel that way? It just really starts to go down the list of, why am I feeling like I cannot speak up? Why am I feeling like this is not a safe place to speak up? So that would be number one, is really going through those questions, asking yourself what, why, how, the full gamut of the questions. Then it would be really taking a look at yourself. Identity is really kind of the bottom line of everything that I like to do and deal with, only because a false identity will have you going in the wrong direction.
mhm. So
And you may have been protecting someone that's not really you by not speaking up. And I say this because I realized at a point in my life there were key things about me that people close to me did not know.
true. Mhm.
They weren't secrets. They're just part of my personality. They're just things I love to do and be and say and whatever. And I realized they didn't know who that person was because I didn't feel like I could show them. I felt like I needed to keep that quiet. So who are you? Like, what do you really like when no one is around? And why do you feel like that person cannot show up fully?
Mhm.
That's your, like, what's your identity in that? And then also, what are the things that you are tolerating? I tend to, whenever I'm working with clients, I take them through this list of tolerations. And like I was saying before, silencing yourself and muting yourself is really a symptom of people pleasing, because you don't want to lose something. You fear you're going to let you lose a relationship or lose an opportunity, right? Or something like that, where you're presenting a different self. Because if you get that relationship or you get that opportunity, then it really is not for you. You're going to end up being miserable. You can only hold up that facade for so long before it starts to grate on you. So what are the things that you've been tolerating for years maybe that really don't go with who you are? They really don't align with who you are because you've been muting yourself all of this time. And so that's where we start. Asking yourself the five questions, who, what, when, where, why, and then asking yourself, what is it about me that is true and authentic? And then asking yourself, what have you been tolerating all this time? What have you been allowing yourself to just put up with, and in essence muting yourself? Like you said, it's not just how you talk, it's how you dress, it's how you show up in the room, it's how you present yourself. What have you been tolerating all this time to get yourself in the space that you're in now that you really don't like?
Right. I love it.
Yeah.
And I just want to, I echo everything that you said because that was so profound wisdom there. But I wanted to just add one little thing to that. And I think
Mhm.
that we have to get to a place where we like ourselves and where we love ourselves. Because if
Yes.
we don't like or love ourselves, we're not going to answer those questions effectively. We're not
Mhm.
going to look deep enough to even find out where is the root cause or the source. We're always stay in a place where we just choose to agree with other people's views and opinions
Yes.
concerning us.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, we will continue to put ourselves in environments that's not conducive to us
Mhm.
and to our well-being. And I think that that was one of the things that I came to grips with, which is why I said earlier in the conversation is that I made a decision not to be in rooms or put myself in spaces where people I've known over the years have shown
Mhm.
signs of not being comfortable with me being my authentic self. And
Mhm.
so
Yeah.
a lot of times it is not necessarily that something is wrong with me or wrong with you or wrong with
No,
us.
not at all.
It's probably something in you that, reminds this person of something that they wish they were, or reminds this person of something that may have occurred in a relationship with them in the past that they never, got healing from within their own rights, or, never took the time to acknowledge within, the right confinements of that particular relationship. And so, if we love ourselves deep enough, if we choose to go on the journey of understanding what authentic love of self is, then I
Mhm.
think that we open up the doors for us to be able to answer everything that you said, the who, what, when, where, and whys, in an effective way where we get the actual proven and driven results. But I do know for a fact when our voices have always been muzzled so long, we tend to get to a place where we tend to not trust ourselves, and we tend to not love ourselves, and we tend to not believe in ourselves as well, because all of our attention has been based upon the validation of other people and not
Right.
us necessarily taking the time to validate, love, and accept ourselves.
Yes, and what you said about alignment with people, that is, I as I've gotten older, I realize how important that is that you do align yourself with people and keep yourself in the proper spaces and really start to step back and assess, and things will hit different when you come from that frame of mind. It's like, oh, okay. Well, they're cool. I'm not really a throwaway person. Like, I don't believe in throwing, throwing
Mhm.
people away. But I do believe that there is a certain alignment of people and that it depends on where you are, right? And
Mhm.
so I totally, when you said that about, separating, making that decision to separate yourself from rooms that are not align with you or for you, that is huge because it speaks to your environment, right?
Mhm.
Like you can't make fundamental change without changing your environment. It just doesn't work like that. And so being able to separate yourself and put yourself around people that you know are for you, that will understand the mission that you're on. They don't fully have to understand your purpose, but at least be willing to save that kind of space for you. That's huge because that's been part of your, if you're a people pleaser, you, I- this is going to be a really bad analogy, forgive me, but don't take alcoholics to the bar. Like, you don't do that if you're trying to help them overcome an addiction to alcohol. So, being a people pleaser, there's a habit in there, that needs to be broken. Don't set yourself up in situations where you have to continue that pattern of behavior if that's something that you really want to break, which speaking up for yourself, and showing up for yourself is what is going to be a part of that whole process. So I just that part with you, aligning yourself with people that are really for you, that understand and can pour into you. And because self care is, again, self love, self care, all of that, it goes so far beyond what you can do at a day spa and all of that. Self care is really a mental place. And so I just love the fact that you said, you know what? I'm gonna shift my environment. And that's the hard part. And it's not the thing that a lot of people want to do. And I get it. It's hard. Especially if you have long-term relationships with these people you've had for years and years, the fact that the relationship is starting to have, shifts in it might feel uncomfortable, right? But again, where is your authentic self showing up if you are always modifying yourself to be in those spaces?
So true.
Yeah.
So true. And even with that, and this is why you shouldn't really modify yourself to be in those spaces, is because there are people that would genuinely love your voice. They would love the
Right.
sound of it. They would love
Yes.
the wisdom that pours from it, the
Right.
understanding, just everything that lines up with you. You are, and we hear it all the time when they say you're not for everybody. I'm not for everybody.
Right.
There
I'm
is
not for
a
everybody.
specific tribe that in a specific group of women or friendships that are genuine and authentic for you and your personality. And there are women that can help smooth out those rough edges. My friends help smooth out those rough edges in me and vice versa or whatnot. And so I've noticed that because I was always the strong girl or the one that says whatever it is that I wanted to say at time frames, my friend have gotten more, the ones that could have been very passive and not
Mhm.
necessarily speak up, they now have gotten stronger in their voice. So
Mhm.
it's like,
See, because you're
it's
a good example. Yeah.
exactly, you learn how to rub off each other, and
Mhm.
their more calmness or whatnot, or more, real roundedness that smooths out my edges, it just meshes and it blends. So it's almost like you don't have to worry about changing yourself to fit into a room or an environment that was never, built to even house you in the beginning.
In the beginning. And you know what? That brings up something for me that for years, I used to wonder why people would talk about, ooh, your enemies are going to do this, or watch out for your enemies. Your enemies. And I always thought, well, I don't have any enemies,
Hmm.
And I thought, well, maybe something is wrong with me because I didn't have any enemies. I thought, well, what are they doing wrong? First, I thought, what are they doing wrong to have enemies? And then it started to shift, and I was like, well, wait, why don't I have any enemies? Not that I was seeking them, but I realized that I was doing overdrive to be pleasant, right? And nice and acceptable to everybody.
Hmm.
That's what I was working really hard on. So maybe I would have had some natural enemies. I don't know. Maybe I had some that never said anything or whatever. But the point was, it dawned on me, no, it's not actually, you can have people that don't really mesh with you well. That's an okay thing. You don't have to be uh pleasantly acceptable to everybody or for everybody,
Hmm.
and it dawned on me. I was like, oh, is that what they mean by enemies when they say enemies? Because I didn't know.
Hmm.
I thought
Yeah.
enemies meant somebody was actually after you, trying to harm you. And I was like, I don't have those. But it never dawned on me that it could simply be, an overly used term for just spaces that were not meant for you. It's
Right.
just not what is meant for you, and that there could be some opposition against you. And I thought, well, wow, I don't have that. Not even realizing it was because I would shift shape. into any room that I was in.
Wow. Now that right there was a whole word, child. I love it. I love it. And I'm sure many people don't think like that or don't recognize that. So that was very profound. That
Yeah,
was
I
very,
didn't know. I
profound.
did not know.
Yeah. I love it. I almost feel like we could end right there because it's almost like how can you follow up behind that type of revelation and that type of understanding? So yeah, I mean, is there any other final thoughts that you would have after something like that?
Wow, just that it's worth it it's worth it. It's worth it to be on the path of discovery of making that decision. Like you said, that it's important to put yourself in spaces that are aligned with you, that are for you, um, that you won't avoid conflict and you won't avoid confrontation, but there's a way to handle that where you still can authentically show up and be yourself, and use your voice because it's valid. Use it in a way that is, compassionate, and but you can have those crucial conversations, as they call them, with people without having to go from 0 to 100. You know,
Exactly. So let's
yeah,
just debunk that word confrontation. Don't think
yeah.
of it as confrontation. Just want to have a conversation or
Have a
address
conversation.
issues.
Absolutely.
Something more
Yeah.
mild and mannered because if you go in thinking, oh, I'm going to go and confront comes off as aggressive. It's almost like
Right.
nature of that word is to be aggressive.
It's you're already answering in a right. You have a posture that already is going to make the other person defensive,
Exactly.
And so if you can come in with a conversation, oh, I noticed that this is what I noticed, right? Not you da 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 da. This is what I noticed. And I just want to understand more. And then when you also come into the conversation with, you know, there the goal of the conversation is so both people can win, right? We want win-win scenarios here. So what is it about the situation that can help them win? Is it an understanding of who you are? Is it, some kind of cooperation between the two of you on whatever the situation is? But having a conversation with them that's more of a win, where I need to express myself, I need to inform you of something, but it's not so much as I need to accuse you of something, because that's what the whole confrontation, brings with it, is accusation, right? And so just making it more of a revelatory conversation where, oh, I can discover some things that you were thinking, you can discover some things I was thinking. We may not necessarily agree, but this is why I thought this way. This is why you thought that way. And I can still feel like, you know what? I can walk away. We may not agree, but guess what? Guess what I just did? I showed up for myself. I used my voice. I spoke up for myself.
Exactly. I love it. Oh, you were such a delight.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank
I
you so
appreciate
much
it.
for coming, Nneka. It was definitely a pleasure to talk to you. So much many wisdom was dropped, so many gems. This
Thank
was
you
a
for having me so
conversation
much.
that was
Yeah.
definitely needed and necessary. So before we go, would you like to tell us anything about your business, Reshape the Soul, anything that you want to leave
Yeah.
us with?
Yeah. So Reshape the Soul, as I was saying earlier, thank you again for having me on the podcast with you today. And, Reshape the Soul is really in existence to help. As you can see, I probably got a little passionate because finding your voice is one of my passions. I really think it's at the seat of a lot of the things that we do as women. And so, Reshape the Soul is all about helping you reshape what might have been disshapen in your soul through trauma, through life experiences. Life can be difficult at times. And so you can reach me at reshapethesoul.com. I'm also on Instagram at Nneka_Tanae. But you can reach me there on the website. I also have a couple of courses that I have coming up soon. And so I want to be able to share those with you. but you can go onto the calendar and schedule a discovery call if you'd like to connect with me, work with me. I help women get freedom from those self-sabotaging mindset traps, which kind of roll into that people-pleasing behavior and that muting yourself behavior that just really keeps you from the things that you really say that you want in life. You wondering why you're going in circles. Well, some of this is the culprit, and so I help people do that. And I would love to chat with you. I would love to help you on your journey and just be a guide for you. So yeah, reach out to me at reshapethesoul.com.
I love it. Definitely. I'm definitely going to spread the word about your awesome business because I do think it's very beneficial and that
Thank
it will
you.
help so many people because there was just so much revelation. So thank you again. We are honored to have you here on the Purity is Precious podcast. And I am definitely will be inviting you back again because I just know that there's just so much more deep inside you that will definitely overflow. So it's like you just like a well of just
Yes, there were so many conversations that we can have.
exactly.
So I'm excited to keep having those conversations. Yes.
I love it. So thank you again. And I
Thank
appreciate
you.
you being here.